Fox News alert, North Korea responding to President Trump's tough talk. State media there claiming that it can launch missiles in Guam's direction within days. So what are the president's critical next steps? Here to weigh in, former CIA officer Bryan Dean Wright. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
So we keep hearing that the ball is in China's court at this point. What do we need them to do that they have not done previously?
Well, for many, many years, they haven't followed through on their promises for sanctions, right? So North Korea gets about 90% of what it needs from both a monetary perspective as well as the items that they need to build those missiles. All that comes from China. So China needs to enforce what they promised to enforce, which is the sanctions, cut off the money. And second, prevent the North Koreans from going into Beijing, going into China, and buying all that equipment that they need to build this program.
Yeah, both of which they have not done so far. Here's what President Trump had to say about it. Back on July 29th, he tweeted this: "Disappointed in China. I am very disappointed in China. Our foolish past leaders have allowed them to make hundreds of billions of dollars a year in trade. Yet they do nothing for us with North Korea. They just talk. We will no longer allow this to continue. China easily solve this problem." But what can we do to force them to follow through this time?
Well, what I think you're seeing the Trump administration do is tie our economic trade to them doing the right thing, right? So you are starting to see some things around aluminum, oddly enough, aluminum foil. I mean, we're looking at bilateral, limitations in terms of trade. When you start hitting the economy of China,
hitting their pocketbook.
That's correct. Then China's going to start to pay attention and say, hey, there is a cost for not doing the right thing. And I think that that's what the Trump administration is doing. And you will see them stepping that up in the number of weeks to come.
But even still, in terms of the latest sanctions that were applied, the United States wanted to go a step further, but China blocked them.
That's right. Fundamentally, China doesn't want to solve this problem. Why? Because they want a buffer state between South Korea and all the G.I. Joes down in Seoul and throughout South Korea and itself, right? Because they fear that if Korea is united, then the United States will be right on their back door. So we have to address that concern if we really want China on board. But the second piece is China has to grow up. They have to understand that they are a member of the international community, and right now they are focused on themselves, their internal stability, over everything else.
They're also concerned, speaking of internal stability, refugees and how that would be an issue.
Absolutely. Look, right across the border from North Korea, that area of China is incredibly important to them, really because of the amount of food that's produced in China. It's kind of their breadbasket, right? It's sort of like our Midwest. So to have a bunch of refugees flowing across that border would create a crisis and a problem for them in terms of a food perspective. So they want to make sure that everything stays tight and stable.
And in terms of the trade and the money that does go to North Korea from them, it goes directly to their nuclear arsenal.
Look, North Korea has one priority and one only, and that is to build ballistic missiles and deliver those things to places like the United States. That is what they prioritize over feeding their own people.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see what happens.